Her eyes glowed like twin moons in the dark, and in that instant I forgot how to breathe. They told me she was a monster, a beast locked away for good reason. They warned me that if I ever came too close, she'd tear me apart without hesitation. But when the torchlight caught the curve of her face, when I saw the raw hunger there not for flesh, but for something far more human, I felt my resolve shatter. The others said to never feed her, that it would only bind her to you in ways you couldn't escape. Still, my hands trembled as I brought the plate closer to the bars, and my heart whispered the truth I didn't want to admit. I wanted her to take it, even if it meant she would never let me go again. The hallway reeked of damp stone and iron, the kind of stench that clung to your skin no matter how many times you washed. My boots scraped against the uneven floor as I approached the cage, every step heavier than the last. The flickering fluorescent light overhead buzzed, casting long shadows across her crouched form. She was massive, her shoulders brushing the bars when she shifted, her wrists bound by shackles too thick for any normal creature. Rumor said her strength could snap them in an instant. Rumor said she was only playing at captivity, waiting for the right moment. And yet, when her gaze lifted to mine, all I saw was loneliness. I held the plate out between us, simple rations, barely worth offering. Bread, a slice of fruit, some meat carved thin. Her eyes tracked the food with curiosity, but they always returned to me, lingering longer than they should have. My pulse thundered in my ears. "You're not afraid of me," she murmured, voice low and velvety, carrying an accent that didn't belong to any human tongue. "I'd be lying if I said I wasn't," I whispered back. The sound of my voice felt too loud in the silence, like I'd just confessed something dangerous. Her lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite a threat. "Then why do you stand so close?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. The truth pressed against my chest, because something in me needed to. I slid the plate through the gap at the bottom of the bars. The clatter of metal against stone echoed. She didn't move right away. Instead, she lowered herself until her long fingers, tipped with dark nails, brushed the floor just beside the plate. She wasn't reaching for the food, she was testing the space, testing me. Every muscle in my body screamed to retreat, to back away before she lunged. But I stayed. Slowly, she drew the plate toward her, never breaking eye contact. When she finally lifted a piece of fruit to her lips, her expression softened, as if she hadn't tasted anything sweet in years. The sight did something to me. I wasn't supposed to feel anything but revulsion or fear. But standing there, watching her savor the simplest thing, I felt a pang of tenderness I couldn't explain. "You risk punishment for this," she said, chewing slowly, voice carrying that same strange lilt. "Better punishment than silence," I muttered before I could stop myself. Her head tilted, hair cascading down her shoulders like ink in water. "You are different from the others." The words lodged deep. I wanted to believe her, though part of me knew it could be manipulation. Still, when her shackles scraped as she shifted closer, pressing her face between the bars until we were only inches apart, I didn't move. I could feel her breath, warm and strangely sweet, brushing across my skin. "What's your name?" she asked. I hesitated. Names were power. Every soldier knew better than to give one to the prisoner. But looking into her glowing eyes, I felt naked already. "Daniel," I said quietly. Her lips parted, repeating it like a secret vow. "Daniel." The sound of it on her tongue sent a shiver through me. Behind me, boots thudded down the corridor. I jerked back as another guard passed, his torch throwing harsh light across the bars. He shot me a sharp glance, suspicion etched into his face. I forced a stiff nod and turned away, my pulse racing. Only when the echoes of his footsteps faded did I realize she was still watching me, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't come back," she said. "Do you want me to?" For the first time, she looked uncertain. Her gaze darted to the shackles biting into her wrists, then back to me. "I don't want you hurt." The admission struck harder than any warning. This creature, this so-called killer, was worried about me. My throat tightened. I should have left, should have turned my back and never returned. But the thought of never seeing her again hollowed me out in ways I couldn't bear. That night, I lay awake on my bunk, staring at the ceiling while the camp around me snored and shifted. Her voice replayed in my head, soft and haunting. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her crouched in that cage, her glow burning in the dark like a beacon meant only for me. I told myself it was madness. I told myself it was a spell. But when dawn came and my shift ended, I found my feet carrying me back toward her cell anyway. The guards muttered as I passed, some smirking, some whispering. They all knew what it meant to linger too long near her cage. There were stories of men who had lost their minds, who begged to be near her even when it cost them their lives. I ignored them, though each word lodged in my skull like a thorn. When I reached her again, she was waiting. Kneeling at the bars, eyes locked on the corridor, as though she had known I would return. "You came," she whispered, almost disbelieving. I couldn't stay away. Her hand rose, hovering just beyond the bars. Trembling, I lifted my own, pressing my palm against hers, iron cold between us. The contact was nothing more than skin to skin separated by steel, but it seared through me. Her fingers curled slightly, gripping mine with surprising gentleness. In that moment, the cage didn't matter. The warnings, the threats, the rumors, they all dissolved. There was only her, only the impossible truth that I wanted her, needed her, more than I'd ever needed anything in my life. And deep in her glowing gaze, I saw a promise form. Now that I had fed her, now that I had touched her, she would never let me go. The nights after that first touch blurred together, each one a stolen secret carved into the stone walls of her cell. I found myself inventing excuses to patrol that wing, volunteering for the worst shifts so I could slip her food without anyone noticing. The rations were pitiful, dry biscuits, a strip of protein meat, sometimes a piece of fruit, but she received them as if I were handing her gifts from another world. Maybe, to her, I was. The more I came, the more she spoke. At first, just fragments, half-sentences, hesitant questions. "Do you dream, Daniel?" she asked one night, her massive form crouched low so her luminous eyes could study me through the bars. When I nodded, she tilted her head, strands of silver-black hair spilling over her shoulder. "Dreams are the only place I am free." I wanted to ask what she meant, but another guard's footsteps sent me retreating again. We learned to share our words in fragments, like smuggled treasures passed between us, a question one night, an answer the next. I told her about the rain on my homeworld, the way it smelled of salt and metal. She told me about oceans that glowed at night on her planet, filled with creatures that sang to the stars. The more I listened, the less she seemed like a monster. Her voice had a weight that made the air itself feel charged, but it wasn't menace, it was music. She laughed at me once, a sound so low and warm it made me forget the chill of the stone corridor. I'd never been anyone's confidant before. In her presence, I felt like more than a uniform with orders. But I wasn't the only one who noticed the change. It started with whispers in the mess hall. "Saw him down there again. Feeding her." Someone smirked. Another muttered, "Dead man walking." I pretended not to hear, but the words clung to me like smoke. Then came the watch sergeant pulling me aside, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "Don't let your pity blind you, soldier. She isn't a woman. She's a weapon. Men thought they could tame her before, and we buried them in pieces." I wanted to believe him wrong, but his warning wormed into me. Each night as I crept back to her cage, I felt like I was walking into the jaws of some colossal beast. Yet when she looked at me, when she whispered my name, the fear melted into something else, something far more dangerous. One night, I smuggled in a heel of bread and, tucked beneath it, a strip of smoked meat I'd traded half my week's pay for. Her nostrils flared when she smelled it. Her chains rattled as she shifted forward, hands sliding beneath the bars. "For me?" she asked. "For you." Her fingers brushed mine again as she took it, and this time she didn't let go right away. The tips of her nails grazed my skin, and a shiver traveled up my arm, settling hot in my chest. She tilted her head, watching me as she ate. "You're different," she said again, voice thick with something I hadn't yet named. "The others fed me out of duty. You feed me because you cannot stand to see me suffer." I swallowed hard. "Maybe. Or maybe I just like your company." For the first time, her lips curved into a true smile. It was devastating, that smile like a sunrise breaking inside the darkness. After that, we talked for hours. About the stars she used to roam. About my family back home. About the things she feared in the silence of her cell. I confessed I feared going to sleep sometimes, because I dreamt of her voice, of her hands, of being caught and punished for the pull I couldn't resist. She leaned close to the bars one night, lowering her voice until it was almost a growl. They told you I would kill you if you came near me. They lied. I don't want your death, Daniel. I want, her words faltered, as if the language she borrowed wasn't big enough to hold what she meant. Instead, she pressed her forehead against the cold iron, closing her eyes. The glow from her skin spilled between the bars and painted my hands in pale blue light. I reached forward, trembling, and pressed my brow to hers. The bars separated us, but still I felt her warmth through the metal. After that, I stopped pretending to myself. Every shift became an excuse to be near her. I smuggled in bits of fruit, a tattered book I thought she might enjoy, even water from the spring near the barracks because she swore the recycled tanks tasted like rust. Each offering was met with a look that seemed to undo me further. But the others were watching more closely now. I heard one of the officers mutter about another fool being claimed. Another guard warned me quietly in the mess hall, they're thinking about moving her. Or ending it, once and for all. Command's getting nervous. The thought of them dragging her out in chains and putting a bullet between those glowing eyes filled me with a fury I didn't recognize. She wasn't a beast to be slaughtered. She was more than I'd ever deserved, maybe, but she had chosen me somehow. The next time I brought her food, I told her what I'd heard. They're going to move you. Or worse. Her expression didn't change. She tore into the bread with a measured calm, as though she'd known it all along. They fear what they don't understand, she said simply. And you? Do you fear me? I took a breath, reached for her hand again. Her fingers curled around mine through the bars, strong but careful, as though she were terrified of breaking me. I did, I admitted. Now I don't know what I feel. Except, I don't want them to take you. For the first time, her glow flared brighter. It lit up the entire corridor, spilling soft azure across the walls. I heard the other guards stir, muttering curses, but none dared approach. Her gaze never left mine. You should not say such things unless you are ready to prove them, she whispered. Because if you give me food, if you give me your touch, you give me yourself. And I do not let go. The words lodged in me like a brand. My heart hammered, torn between terror and something perilously close to desire. I thought of the warnings, of the men who had died. I thought of her lips brushing fruit, of the way she said my name as though it meant something. I leaned closer until my face nearly brushed the bars again. Then maybe I don't want you to let go. Her eyes flared once more, brighter than the lamps overhead. The chains on her wrists rattled, not with violence but with urgency, as though they could no longer contain what she felt. She gave a low, shuddering laugh, and in that sound I heard a promise that both thrilled and terrified me. Then you are mine, Daniel, she whispered. And I will not forget. The alarms began to wail. The alarms shrieked like 1,000 knives raking the air. Red lights pulsed across the corridor, strobing over her chained form. I turned toward the far end of the hall where soldiers were already shouting, boots slamming against the stone floor in a thundering rhythm. The air smelled of dust and ozone, the scent of power rifles charging. She hadn't moved away. She crouched at the bars with her forehead still pressed near mine, as if the shrill klaxon and approaching danger were just echoes in a dream she didn't care to wake from. Her glowing eyes narrowed, not in fear, but in something sharper, fiercer. They're coming, I whispered. I know. Her lips curved into a smile that wasn't entirely human. Let them. I stumbled back from the bars, panic rising like a tide in my chest. No, you don't understand. If they decide you're too dangerous to move, they will kill me. She said it plainly, like she'd accepted it already. Then she tilted her head, hair tumbling down her shoulders like molten silver. But you would never let them, would you? I hated that she could see through me so easily. Hated more that she was right. I clenched my fists. The plate of food lay forgotten on the floor between us, crumbs scattering like ash. The squad reached the end of the corridor. The sergeant at their head, the same one who had warned me before, glared when he spotted me near the bars. Step aside, Daniel. Orders are orders. She hasn't hurt anyone, I blurted before I could stop myself. She hasn't. She's killed 3 men, he snapped. You think you're different? That thing's a weapon, and command doesn't keep broken weapons. He raised his hand, and the soldiers behind him leveled their rifles. The giantess laughed again, low and throaty, her eyes blazing brighter still. The sound made the men falter. I could see it, how it unsettled them, how it made their hands shake just enough for the barrels of their rifles to waver. She leaned closer to the bars, her voice a caress meant only for me. Daniel, set me free. The key ring at my hip felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My training screamed at me, don't. She's a threat. But my heart, my marrow, everything that made me who I was, every part of me was already moving. I stepped forward, ignoring the sergeant's barked command to stop. My hand shook as I crouched and slid the key into the lock. The soldiers cursed. One raised his weapon. The giantess's glow flared, blindingly bright, and suddenly the air trembled with power. The floor shook. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. What the hell are you doing? The sergeant roared. I turned the key. The lock clicked. The chains fell away like they had been waiting for this moment. She rose to her full height, towering over all of us, a figure of silver blue fire and shadow. For the first time I saw her clearly, skin shimmering like starlight on water, hair flowing around her like a living night sky, eyes blazing with a light that pierced me to my core. The soldiers opened fire. Bolts of plasma ripped through the air, sizzling against the iron bars. But she moved faster than I thought possible. One chain whipped out like a serpent, slamming into the wall and sending men scattering. Another sweep of her arm knocked rifles from their hands, sparking against the stone floor. I should have run. Instead, I pressed myself against the bars, shielding her with my body as if I could protect her from the world. It was madness, suicidal. And yet, as she stepped forward, her hands curling around the iron, I felt no fear. She tore the bars apart like they were paper. The soldiers stumbled back, shouting for reinforcements. I heard boots pounding from the stairwell, the metallic clatter of more weapons being primed. I expected her to charge, to unleash the fury they all feared. Instead, she bent low, her face level with mine, her voice a whisper in my mind rather than my ears. Come with me. Her hand reached out, enormous, trembling, waiting. Every rational thought screamed against it. I thought of the tribunal, of my family back home, of the fact that if I stepped across that threshold, I'd be branded a traitor forever. I thought of the charred remains of the men who'd tried to approach her before me. But then I thought of her eyes. The loneliness I'd seen there. The way she had said my name like a prayer. And I realized I had already chosen. I took her hand. The instant my skin pressed against hers without the barrier of iron between us, the world seemed to shatter. A current surged through me, not painful, but overwhelming, heat and starlight and the weight of something ancient. My knees almost buckled, but her hand held me steady. The soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts screamed past, scorching the stone, filling the air with ozone and smoke. But the beams never touched me. A shimmer of light curved around us, a shield of her will alone. She rose to her full height, still holding me gently in her palm. Chains dangled from her wrists like broken jewelry. She turned toward the end of the corridor, where the soldiers regrouped, their faces masks of fear. I wanted to say something, anything, but my voice was caught in my throat. All I could do was cling to her, feeling the pulse of her power vibrating up through my bones. Her voice slid into my mind again, smoother than silk, heavy as gravity. They will never forgive you. You know this. I don't care, I whispered. Then you are mine. The wall behind her shuddered. Cracks split the stone as if her very presence were pushing against it. With a single motion, she drew back her arm and slammed her chained fist into the wall. The corridor erupted, stone shattering outward in a rain of dust and rubble. The alarms shrieked louder, and the soldiers opened fire in blind panic. Daylight poured in through the gaping wound in the prison wall. Beyond it stretched the jagged cliffs of the outpost, and beyond that, the star-scarred sky. She stepped through the rubble with me cradled against her chest, her skin blazing brighter than the sun. I twisted to look back one last time. The sergeant stood among the dust and debris, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. Our eyes met. I knew in that instant he would never stop hunting me. But then her arms tightened around me, protective and possessive, and the world fell away as she leapt into the void beyond the cliffs. The ground vanished. The air howled in my ears. Her body shielded me as we soared upward, impossibly high, toward the waiting stars. My stomach lurched, but my heart had never felt so certain. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt only her warmth, her strength, her vow echoing in my skull. "You are mine now, Daniel," she whispered again, and this time her lips brushed my forehead like a brand. "And I will never let you go." The prison alarms faded behind us. The stars swallowed us whole. And I realized, with a mix of dread and exhilaration, that there was no going back. The stars opened around us like an endless ocean of fireflies. Her body was the vessel, her skin a shimmering hull of blue light, her heartbeat the only sound steady enough to guide me through the chaos of alarms still fading behind us. I clung to her, expecting at any moment to be incinerated by plasma fire or crushed in her grasp. But her grip was firm without pain, protective rather than violent. She vaulted from jagged cliff to cliff, each leap carrying us farther from the prison's burning throat. Wind howled against my ears. The night sky peeled back into a panorama of galaxies, their light refracted through the atmosphere as if even the universe were holding its breath. My chest pressed against her palm, I could feel the vibration of her power humming beneath her skin. It wasn't mechanical, wasn't synthetic. It was alive. It was her. "Where are you taking me?" I shouted over the roar of rushing air. "Away," she answered simply, voice in my mind again, smoother than any sound had a right to be. "To where they cannot cage me. To where you can't be taken from me." There was no menace in her tone, but there was no choice in it either. The certainty chilled me even as it stirred something reckless in me. I had chosen to unlock her shackles. I had placed myself in her hands. Whatever came now was a consequence of my own hunger. Behind us, the prison erupted in fire. The soldiers' rifles cracked futilely, bolts of light streaking into the night, but the giantess wove a shimmering barrier of starlight with a sweep of her arm. The bolts dissolved against it like raindrops on glass. She didn't even flinch. We cleared the last ridge and leapt into open sky. For a heartbeat, we were suspended over nothing, and I felt weightless, my stomach left behind. Then her wings unfurled, vast, translucent arcs of light, like sails spun from liquid crystal. The air caught her, lifted us higher, and the ground fell away into a blur of rock and shadow. I had never flown before. The rush of air stung my eyes and whipped tears sideways across my face, but beneath the terror was a rising exhilaration. Her arms cradled me close against her chest, the glow of her skin warming me through my uniform. For the first time in years, I wasn't staring at walls or wires or the blank eyes of other soldiers. I was hurtling upward, toward a sky so wide it seemed to have no end. But as the ground shrank away, the weight of what I'd done pressed in harder than ever. There was no going back. No court would pardon a guard who freed a captive, least of all one considered an enemy weapon. I wasn't a soldier anymore. I was something else entirely. She must have felt the turmoil in me. Her voice slid through my mind again, soft, coaxing. "You wonder if you've doomed yourself. If I am what they say." "You killed them," I said, forcing the words out past the rush of wind. "The other men. They didn't make it out." Her arms tightened around me as though I might slip away. "They came with blades and fire. They came with hunger in their eyes. You came with bread." Her logic was alien, but the warmth in her voice tugged at me, as if she were weaving a web between us. Part of me resisted, clinging to the soldier I had been. Another part, a deeper, lonelier part, leaned into her warmth, desperate for it. The prison lights dwindled to sparks far below. In the distance, the black sky split open into streaks of starlight as she propelled us beyond the atmosphere. My ears popped. My chest tightened. I should have been suffocating, but a cocoon of shimmering light wrapped around me, sealing me in her breath. "You breathe because I will it," she said softly. "You live because I choose it. And you have chosen me." I should have been horrified. Instead, the intimacy of her words made my pulse quicken. No one had ever wanted me like this, Not in my whole life. Not with such terrifying certainty. We broke through the last whisper of atmosphere. Silence engulfed us, vast and perfect. Stars blazed on every side, burning holes in the blackness. She unfurled her wings wider, each beat propelling us across the void. I had no sense of direction, no sense of time, only her, only the fierce possessiveness in her eyes when she looked down at me. "You're free now," I whispered, my voice caught between awe and fear. She shook her head slowly. "We are free." I felt the weight of that word. We. It wasn't just her escape. It was ours. She had pulled me into her exile, into her flight, and in doing so had bound me to her more tightly than those iron shackles ever had. But freedom, I realized, was a fragile thing. Already I could see lights rising behind us, pursuit craft, their engines burning like angry stars against the void. The prison wasn't going to let her go quietly. They'd follow us across the system if they had to. Her jaw tightened. "They will not take you from me." The glow around us pulsed, and for a heartbeat I thought I saw shapes in it, constellations moving, living. A galaxy unfolding from her skin. My mind reeled at the enormity of her power. If she wanted, she could snuff out those pursuit craft with a gesture. But what else might she do, once we were alone in the black? "Where are we going?" I asked again, my voice cracking. Her eyes softened as they met mine. "Home. To the place where the stars sing. To where I am not a prisoner." She tilted her head, studying me as though measuring the weight of my presence. "And you will sing with me." Her hand curved around me, thumb brushing my chest like a lover's touch. A shiver ran down my spine, heat unfurling in my stomach. I should have felt like a captive. Instead, I felt chosen. The pursuit ships grew closer, their lights cutting sharp lines through the void. My training screamed at me to find a weapon, to fight, to do something. But I was empty-handed, held in the grasp of something that defied every order, every briefing, every warning. She turned her face toward the stars, and her voice filled my mind once more, tender and unyielding all at once. "When they fire, I will show you what I am. And when I do, Daniel, you must decide if you will still love me." The lights flared. The void lit up with spears of white-hot energy streaking toward us. She spread her wings wide, her glow building to a blinding radiance, and I felt her gather me closer, as if I were the only thing that mattered in all the galaxies. The first volley struck the barrier. The universe went white. And in that instant, as the cosmos roared around us, I heard her whisper in my mind, fierce and possessive and achingly tender. "You are mine. Forever." And then,